radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church, and today is May 3rd, 2023. And tonight's episode is brought to you by Accidental Truth, the new documentary that is streaming right now over on all the streaming platforms, including Amazon. And the link for it is below. You need to go and check it out. This is the documentary for our community, required viewing. So go and check out Accidental Truth, directed by Ron James today. And so tonight on the show, very excited. Our guest is Gretchen Cornwell, live from the UK, by the way. And tonight we're going to be discussing a lot of things, but centered around the bloodline of Mary Magdalene. And her possible ties to the Knights Templar. We're going to be getting into all of that. She is a historian. She's an expert on the Knights Templar, having written 2 books on the subject. She has lived in England since 2002, is a member of the British Archaeological Association. She has appeared on History Channel's The Curse of Oak Island and Ancient Aliens as an expert on the Knights Templar and medieval history. She's a contributor to Web Icon Inc., a documentary film company, and has appeared in the documentary film series Templars, the Sinclair Legacy, and Gudrid, the Fair and the Sword in the Circle, which will be released in 2023 on Amazon Prime in the United States and the UK. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Gretchen Cornwell. Gretchen, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm great. I'm up, awake, and I have my coffee.
You're gonna need it tonight. Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And that's always the deal with the UK. Here we're all the way over in Los Angeles, and that time difference is brutal. But welcome, and it's going to be a great show. You ready?
I am. I'm looking forward to it. I was actually quite excited and adrenalized to be here this evening with all of you and with you, Jimmy. So really pleased to be here.
And now here's the deal. What we're going to do is start with the first time guest disclaimer. It's the first time you're on the show. So we get to do that, which is, Gretchen, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. So that's when you have to click. You have to accept.
Already done. Already done. Thank you, Jimmy.
Already done. Here's what's interesting for me. And I kind of want to start here. Years ago, at the beginning of the Internet 1.0 just started. Get my first search engine. It's 1995. I get whatever, Mozilla or something, and I start on my journey when websites were very rare, but there was a collection very early on about René Le Chateau. There was King Arthur. There was an early Oak Island website. It was like 2 pages. But then getting into King Arthur, the Da Vinci Code, I don't even think happened yet, right? But it was a bunch of subjects that I was very interested in, and apparently so was the internet back then. And I dove straight in, and getting into Mary Magdalene, Jesus, King Arthur, of course, René Le Chateau, and everything that presented. opens up all of those doors, right? Everything is just right in front of you. And I haven't stopped researching it since. And that's why this show tonight is so great. And I just really enjoy the subject. And I don't know it as well as I should, but it's something that it's like the gift that keeps on giving. There's always more research and more evidence that is revealed every day, right?
It's true. I have had a few people say to me, well, don't we know everything there is to know about the Templars? And isn't that ride pretty well done? And then, yeah, of course, it's not true. And something always pops up, as you've said. And 1995 actually was the year that hit for me as well. I discovered Lawrence Gardner in that year, and he wrote extensively about the bloodline. So did Agent Henry, and Lincoln and Lee and Lincoln. But that was the year for me as well. And I was hooked. And it is a passion for me, and it gets me up in the morning, this whole genre. We're talking a minimum of 2,000 years of history under this umbrella with its side jogs. And it's riveting. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing and researching. And you're right, there's always something more to learn. And you'll find it's almost through inspirational flashes that I have stumbled across information that has blown me away, blown me out of the water. And I just feel that gifts of information come, and I'm sure you feel the same way whenever you have something fall into your lap. And it's such an interesting thing with the Renaissance photo paintings and the medieval paintings, where you have the objects in the sky that are metallic. And I believe this is slightly off topic, but the UFO world is connected to the world of Mary Magdalene and great cathedrals and master painters. A lot of this information is kept and perpetuated in the art schools, and all great masters like Leonardo or Botticelli, they had their students that would work for them, do work for them. And that's a lot of these secrets were kept within the art schools, within stonemasonry, etc. But these paintings, I'm just taking a side jog here to put these two subjects together. I'm sure you've seen them, where you've got the Virgin Mary is being told she's going to have a child, and there's a UFO in the sky
with the beam of light coming out of it.
Yeah, it's
right.
really interesting stuff.
But that's such a great point, in that so much of this is hiding in plain sight, and you've got to go back and decode it and figure out what the message is. And to that end, I think that there is such a huge interest when you look at the success of something like the Da Vinci Code, which, I mean, just took off. But that's also Ancient Aliens and the Curse of Oak Island, right, where the world wants this information and they enjoy it, and it's a puzzle that we're still trying to figure out, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it is primal and has hit all of us at the core of our being, and drives so many of us almost inexplicably to seek out as much information as is possible on what happened 2,000 years ago and in the centuries preceding or after that. And what is fascinating is you've got to take the names and events off the dry page in a book and put yourself in their shoes. Our ancestors over the last 2,000 years of time are human beings that had limitations and had to leverage their resources in intelligent ways. And when they organized themselves, they pulled off some pretty incredible feats. The Templars are fascinating. And it takes a little bit of imagination, but you've got to put yourself in their shoes and work out, okay, it's the evening of October 13th, 1307, when you're about to be arrested, it, and you've got to save what you can of your order. What are you going to do? So it's fascinating. I do believe the Knights Templar survived and inspired other orders such as the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, and that there are still the people who carry the traditions of the original order, Templarism. The Cathars are still with us. It's just forgive me, it's 3 a.m. and I'm trying to stay intelligent, look like I've got it together, and and I also want to just give all of this all at once, but I'm only human, so it has to happen one thing at a time.
Well, that's where I come in. I'll do my job. Let's actually start with Mary Magdalene and what you have learned. We have got probably 1,000 different versions of her that are out there, and a lot of research has poured into this, not only from our community, but also through historians, archaeology, and then we have the biblical narrative too as well, which is quite honestly very thin. There isn't much there too as well. So who was she? And let's start there. We'll get to her relationship with Jesus, but Mary herself, who was she?
Well, she was of a bloodline herself, and this is a very strict culture that she was born into, and she was a political bride as well as an important match for Prince King Jesus. There is Jesus the man, the healer, the wise man, and he needed someone who could go toe-to-toe with him. And he found that individual in Mary Magdalene. And she was able to grasp wholeheartedly his deepest teachings. And it was the female movement that took the spirituality of his teachings forward. And of course, there were two churches. Where there was the political patriarchal church that developed in 325 AD. Constantine, the Roman emperor, created this very patriarchal religion. And whereas Mary Magdalene had been forced to go into exile in Marseille and spread Jesus's teachings into France. And of course, her children would eventually be aligned with the Merovingian bloodline. And who is she? I think she is an archetypal figure that is as important now for any of us to communicate with in not only a grounded way, but through our faculties of imagination, and to put yourself in her shoes. There are as you say, very scant biblical information, thin on the ground, but there are the other texts that are not in the Bible. They were of course taken out. There is the marriage text, which says, he used to kiss her often on the blank. Of course, that little part there from the ancient text.
Oh, we lost
that was
you.
Discovered. Of course, it's thought that he would kiss her often on the mouth. And according to the book of Mary Magdalene, she says, Peter hates my kind, my race, meaning women. So she's feeling threatened by him. We know he has a sword. We know he's a bodyguard, if you will, of Jesus, and a pretty powerful guy, and he has the ear of all of the male disciples. Well, I'm pretty sure she had her own female disciples that took his word out, and she was baptizing people, she was initiating people. She spent, according to legend, her life in a cave in southern France, and these are all primal. I do a lot of research about caves and Templar connected caves as well. So the cave is really important. And here she is, his wife, who's had his children, is living in a cave, in her lifetime. So I respect that you and your community have been doing a lot of research on her. I won't dwell on the early information that you are all familiar with. I did go into a lot of that in my first book, The Secret Dossier of a Knight Templar of the Sangreal, and that progression in history going forward. And I don't believe that they were poor. He was the Davidic king. He was supposed to have been, the king. And carpenter actually means master. So master of what? Was he actually a carpenter? It doesn't mean that he couldn't have been on a ship with his wealthy uncle, Joseph of Arimathea, and had as a healthy young man, been very helpful on board that vessel as they're sailing to Cornwall in southwest England for the tin trade. So that he's not sitting around musing. He's a healthy active guy. So
yeah, I always thought that carpenter was symbolic. I've never really pictured Jesus making stools, right?
No.
You guys need a dresser. Let me build you guys a dress. I don't. That carpenter was symbolic. But with that being said, with Mary, do we have any idea where she was born?
She, forgive me, there is Mary of Magdal, is it Magdal? She is named after there was an actual town called Migdal. Forgive me, my brain is freezing up on me. But she was actually called Mary the Magdalene.
Right.
And that means Mary the Tower. And tower brings into the equation all sorts of meanings, singular strength, an individual in charge. She would have been the queen, of the kingdom of Jerusalem, had he been able to take the throne. So her status level is that of a physical bride of royalty in exile, and that's why he married her, because she was of a royal bloodline, Davidic, if I'm not mistaken.
Why do you think that the church very deliberately went out of their way to portray her as, a woman of the night, right? Some kind of
Yeah, well, I think that was in the early 1500s that the Pope of the time he took like three berries and bunched them all up and decided she was a prostitute.
Mhm, mhm.
None of these guys wanted competition, especially uh, competition that was hereditary, and none of them wanted that.
Yeah,
So you had to erase her,
right, and
and
they just wanted to reduce her status and damage her image
yeah,
because there's no way that she could be anything more than that
yeah.
because Jesus was Jesus and we can't elevate Mary into some other position. Is that too far of a stretch or
Oh,
that's
no, that's exactly how it went down.
right, right.
Exactly. It's all about power and money. You want the population base to tithe generously to the monoliths you've created, these massive churches. I mean, the Vatican is a very expensive proposition to keep going. And you don't want your popes to have children because you don't want the children to squabble over the spoils, if you will. You want to keep one man in charge who has control over everything, and you get rid of the actual bloodline. Of course, that didn't work out actually all that well. There are quite a few things happening under the surface throughout medieval history, but here's my disclaimer. If you are a scholar, a master's level or PhD level, you're writing a book, you have a television show to do, you've got a legitimate publisher, etc. The Vatican archives are very open to research. They have so much material, they don't even know what they have. And I appreciate that they have embraced and their sciences, their astronomy, they've got their own observatory. They have embraced science. I think this current pope is very interesting. There is a lack of priests in South America, and he's advocating allowing married priests to be at the forefront in South America. And that's many early popes were married. We all know that they did have children. The church in the UK, the British kingdoms, they were married. It wasn't until the 600s, when things were clamped down. Celtic Christianity espoused reincarnation and marriage and children. You want the leader of your organization to have a full life experience. And if the wheels of the universe are held together by this incredible energy, this incredible creative force, that quantum mechanics, which I do go into in my book as well, I spend a lot of time on quantum mechanics, Mary Magdalene's children, the survival of the Templars, etc. So it's a lot of work in that book. But if you look at the photographs coming out of the James Webb Telescope, and you look at these breathtaking images, what we're seeing is a grain of sand. It's been said by NASA. You hold it between your forefinger and your thumb, extend it out, and that grain of sand is what we're looking at through the James Webb Telescope. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of galaxies that we're discovering. So the energy that holds all of that together can't have a representative son, if you will, and daughter and lineage on one teeny tiny little planet. Come on. Let's broaden our horizons just a little bit.
I say that all the time, and
you know
yeah, the more that we learn and understand about the size of everything. I mean, we don't have we don't understand. We can't wrap our head around the size of everything.
No.
And for all of that, it seems to me, from what I have learned, I've done a lot of shows and a lot of interviews, that it's not chance, right? It's not just lucky. There has to be something behind it all. I don't know what that is. I don't. You can call it God. You can call it some supreme being, spirituality. I don't know. Hopefully someday we will find out, and I will find out. But there is something behind it, and we've got to continue to chase those answers. We have to. We can't stop.
I like to call this the great divine, and because it is so big. And it's our job as self-aware human beings to chase it down. Absolutely.
Now you mentioned France. That is one. Okay, so let's get into a little spirited conversation here. I'm a little confused, and I haven't quite figured this out. So Mary and some friends get on a boat and sail across the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they paddled. They sailed across the Mediterranean. Were they aiming for France?
I think so. There was already in place a thriving Jewish community in Marseille. And so they weren't going to a strange new world. This was part of the Mediterranean. It was a huge trading port. Very key to I think Joseph of Arimathea. He knew where he was going. The legends all say that Mary Magdalene was put into a boat with a couple of other people and without oars, pushed out into the Mediterranean. No, she and her family, according to legends, with Joseph of Arimathea, they got on a ship and they sailed to Marseille. We've got to think about the practicalities and get away from the legends, of the past. So if you need to get out of town, and go into exile because your king in waiting has just been murdered by the Romans, you're going to need a sail, you're going to need oars, you need to pack quickly, all these things. So it's bring it into a human level. It's fascinating, the culture in southern France that reveres Sarah the Egyptian. Sarah in Hebrew literally means princess, and this is where it's one of the high points of the Black. This is where the Black Madonna comes in through Sarah the Egyptian, who's dark. She's black. Yeah, she went into hiding. And this ties in with the Isis stories, where Isis had to go rescue the different parts of her husband Osiris that had been scattered through the kingdom after Set chopped him up to get rid of him. So she disguises herself and puts soot on her face. So, and in that's the original Cinderella story,
right.
And of course that is revisited with Sarah the Egyptian, and she is the next in line after Mary Magdalene, and it's hiding her identity. It's one of the first ways. She's hiding her identity, and we've got another incarnation of that coming up that I'm looking forward to sharing with you as well. But the trading routes, there was an inland trading route for gold, maybe Joseph of Arimathea was trading gold at some point as well, but that goes up in Toulouse, straight north through the middle of France and up to the coastline. And then it's just 22 miles across to England. And then, of course, the shipping route is out of the Mediterranean up the other side. But, we think of our ancestors as people who are stuck into a 15-mile radius. They weren't. They traveled. If they had any money at all, they were able to hop on a boat, and they moved very quickly through the world. So that's one of my missions, is trying to get people to understand the free movement that was available to these historic individuals, and they're historic and venerated, and because they had, they were movers and shakers of their day. They changed history. They affect our consciousness today. But they had money. They had access to ships that could navigate rivers. The Mediterranean is not chopped up into blocks where it's just the Holy Land here and nobody ever went to Marseille. So, you've got to always keep in mind the highway, the freeway, the 80 miles an hour down the road, in a ship on a river.
That's exactly what they did in the Mediterranean. You could literally just stay along the shore and just go port after port after port.
Absolutely.
That's what they did.
And that's, it was a big trading port, and there was a strong, wealthy Jewish community there already.
Now, how old was Sarah?
That's a good question. She's old enough to be described as Sarah, the dark Egyptian. So we're not talking about a baby here. We're talking about perhaps a young teenager who could stand on her feet. I do think that Mary Magdalene had to have had at least 3 children. And that seems to be the legend. Jesus himself was the eldest of 8. And of course, Thomas translates to twin. So he had a twin brother. And this is a lineage that was passing down sacred traditions to their talented sons, who were able to interface with the great divine.
So if we put it in those terms, and this, I'm just going to speak as a 2023 adult here, right? If we put it in those terms, Mary and Jesus got together, obviously before his resurrection and things, but had 3 children. And if Sarah was in her teens, then Mary would have left Jerusalem, or that area, Israel, 13, 14 years after the fact. So she was in Israel for 13 years before she departed?
No, I think, this is where legend is challenging. I don't think that she had a single child and was pregnant she may have been pregnant when she left, but she had, Sarah the Egyptian is in the boat with her, and that is her daughter. I think they left pretty well after the crucifixion, because it still wasn't safe for them to be there. I think the only reason why she survived herself was because she was a woman. And the first one at the tomb, she stayed at the foot of the cross.
So you're suggesting that she left immediately after that?
I think so, and I think that they may have been married longer than was thought. The marriage of Cana was their marriage, and
right.
Maybe that took place earlier.
Right.
In order to become a rabbi, he was called rabbi. In order to become a rabbi, you had to be married. You had to have children. So he would have been expected to get married right after his bar mitzvah. He was born into Jewish culture, not, he didn't, come forth and say, okay, I'm going to establish Christianity, and that just means anointed one. Christ it means anointed one. So
okay, well, let's stay right there. So Sarah's born. She's already alive. When Mary got into the boat, I'm just trying to piece all this together.
No, this is how you have to think about it, because you have to think about it in physical human terms.
Correct. So she was pregnant when she got on the boat with Jesus's other two children.
Well, that's, yeah, I hear you. There may have been a son in the boat along with Sarah. She may have been pregnant with a son.
Okay. Right. Okay.
And of course, trying we're talking about legends that have withstood the test of time, 2,000 years. And I do hope that at some point we find ancient texts that establish this. There has to be a precedent for this, there has to be. And detective work is the way to flush out what could have happened. But I do think that we're talking about 3 children, and that would have meant 2 would have been born at the time of the alive at the time of the crucifixion.
Mm-hmm.
And she was pregnant with a 3rd, 2 sons and a daughter.
2 sons and a daughter, sailing across with some other friends on the boat. They arrive in Marseille. With the research that I've read, and certainly you have done so much of it, we have cities, we have families, we have churches, we have all kinds of things in the south of France that follow these names. And it's not coincidence, is it?
No, and names are so important that if you no longer have a building and you've got a name, then something went down in that location. So it's really important to follow the names of place names, etc. She her DNA spread all the way up into Brittany in northern France. So I'm kind of shifting the conversation a little bit here, because I do have proof that she was venerated up until 1627 as a constellation in the night sky.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. No, go ahead. Now
so here we are. We have. I sent you some photographs.
Yes.
And so I would love to be able to answer all your early questions, but a lot of that is in my first book. Some of this is too. But so in Herod of Landsberg was an abbess of Hohenberg Abbey, which was founded by the Merovingians. Of course, we all know who they are. So that's interesting in itself. She developed the earliest encyclopedia called the Hortus Delicarium, or the Garden of Delights, which is an interesting title in itself, slightly odd in context. So this is 1180 that this is done, and it's quite extensive. It covers everything that was possibly known of at the time, and then some. She did this for the future leadership of her abbey. Now, there is a frontispiece, if you will, of Sophia, and of course, Sophia means the wisdom in Greek, the Sophia of Christ, So the frontispiece is let's see, back up here, Gretchen. The 7 liberal arts is depicted in this round circle. There it is. Philosophia and the seven liberal arts, this was so important all the way up from the Greeks, the Romans who adopted it, and into the well-educated classes of the Middle Ages all the way up. And of course, the seven liberal arts was protected, if you will, from ignorance. A lot of people didn't read, write, etc. at the time, and abbeys, monasteries kept the written word alive, and the seven liberal arts became the hallmark of a human being. If you were proficient in all of these areas, then you would be considered a great citizen of Greece. And of course, we're talking about men here. Now, Lady Philosophia, or Sophia, is in the middle there, and she's holding this very strange wide banner. And out of her heart center are coming the seven streams of knowledge. Underneath her is Plato and Socrates.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have a reference to the Platonic mystery schools. So keep that in mind. And that's in my first book as well. I won't go into everything here because I have a lot of ground to cover that I would like to talk to you about tonight. I'm not quite sure what time it is, but this is quite a complicated piece. And when I realized, I was looking at this thing and I thought, oh my God, it's coded. And in brief, the banner she is holding plays a part. There, yes, this is geometry, and she is in her own special little arch here, and she's holding the two instruments that are important in not just the mathematical approach of geometry, but in building. Stone lasts forever. Stone is so important to the Templar mindset, to the medieval mindset, because it's the one thing that will withstand the test of time. So she's got this giant, compass and staff, but I noticed the exaggerated M that the objects create. And if you go to my book, The Secret Dossier, you'll be able to see the image of geometry without the M. The staff cuts across her knee, and the fold of her dress creates one side, the compass the other side. And next to her is astronomy, the art of astronomy. But the weird thing is with her, look at what she's holding. She's holding a jar. Why is she doing that? Why would an astronomer need a jar? So we're looking at the anointing, the alabaster jar there that Mary Magdalene used to anoint Jesus as the rightful king, is what that gesture was about, and acknowledging him as her husband in public. So those two shapes that we were looking at is Cassiopeia, and I actually took the configuration of Cassiopeia and experimented with it on the stars of astronomy and geometry. And Cassiopeia revolves in the night sky around the North Star. And poor Cassiopeia, she's always poked fun at as the vain queen. But when you're talking about the Platonic mystery school and Templarism and the Magdalene mysteries, you're looking at Mary Magdalene. And when that constellation turns in the night sky, it does form to a double M. So it is a bit wonky, and it is the throne. It is called the throne in heaven, the night sky. So she is the counterpart revolving around his fixed position, and she's always there. And Cassiopeia is often shown with a mirror. It's not vanity. It means know thyself, which was written above the entryway of the Platonic compound the Plato's school, know thyself. That's where that comes from. So you've got to look at yourself. You've got to go inward. You've got to examine yourself. So these concepts are all being welded together through the image of Cassiopeia as a way of remembering, Mary Magdalene. And I didn't send this to you, but she is also to be found, and this is in my book, in a star chart that was created in 1627. And this star chart is really interesting. It's an attempt to Christianize the constellations, and it didn't catch, it didn't take on. But what was so interesting is that Cassiopeia yet again is portrayed as Mary Magdalene, and with her alabaster jar over an empty tomb, and her expression is very much the same as the Mona Lisa. And I'm very certain that the artist had seen the painting to capture this visage. But what's interesting about that star chart is that the Virgin Mary is not in it. She's missing. So it's quite heretical. And the astronomer who put this together died within months of this being released. So, and that I don't know his history enough. I haven't found anything more about it, but he died, and the whole project died with him.
Of course he did.
So yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The one question that I can't get out of my head, and it's been like this for a while, is that there has to be survivors. There has to be a continuation of the bloodline. And when the idea is put forward by Dan Brown, and I'm not going Dan Brownish here, I'm not going to do that.
It's okay.
Suggest that the Holy Grail is the bloodline was actually a pretty interesting take. And one that I don't necessarily subscribe to, but what it does force us into thinking is who is the continuation today? Does the bloodline survive in 2023?
Yes is the answer, and it's going to be difficult to pinpoint exactly who. What everyone focuses on is Dagobert and his murder, but Dagobert was not the only individual to take into consideration. If you can trace your genealogy back to Charlemagne, then you are part of this bloodline. And that the reason for that is his great-grandmother, Bertrada, was a Merovingian princess. And I believe that she was forced, or voluntarily, who knows, probably forced, to marry Pepin the Short. I think he was the first Carolingian ruler after the poor last imprisoned Merovingian was gotten rid of. So here you have the DNA in this woman, and that DNA continues through Charlemagne. And I find that incredibly fascinating. And one of the issues that just irks me beyond anything is that you can change a woman's name, but you cannot change her DNA. Oh, if only. No, the blood is still there. Her DNA is still there. And, it's like people say, this is a different conversation, but just briefly, the current royal family is related to the Stuarts through a sister of Charles II, who married into the Hanoverian family. So they are related. And what the medieval world did was to, the whole culture was based around women as substandard, and that is made. It's quite handy, really. You get rid of women, then you've immediately gotten rid of half the competition. And that's what it's all about. It's competition. So everything had to go through the man, and then the men duke it out for supremacy. It's that simple. So just because, so Bertrada, who, has been quite an invisible figure, but she's there. Now that, Charlemagne was an incredible individual, and even he refused to let his daughters marry so that there wasn't too much competition through male heirs. So it's an interesting study when you start looking at medieval history, and there were powerful women. Eleanor of Aquitaine is directly related to this bloodline. There are many interesting individuals. There are, and this brings us into talking about Melusine. But if you can trace your family back to Charlemagne, yeah, you are. Now, this is where two things have to happen. One, each human being has a central nervous system that is an interface, if you will, to the great divine. No human being is outside of this. So human potential is gifted to all of us. If you drop a pebble in a pool, you may get some pretty interesting individuals out of that. That's the flip side of that coin. So when you're talking about bloodline, I've got a lot of my friends on Facebook, people who have approached me and said, "Hey, I'm related," and I'll say, "Congratulations, you are walking history." And some of them have had some really interesting paranormal experiences and lucid dreams of the past. Some of them quite remarkable. But I'll leave you with that.
Yeah,
Let you ponder that.
Well, we're going to circle back to that. The evidence all the way from the south of France through the coming centuries with the Merovingian, not only were they through the hills, the mountains, the towns, and in total control of the south of France, they were traders. They were also the keepers of the knowledge. They built the churches, and they were the government at that time. Yeah. And the evidence is, I think, is quite clear from that period all the way up to Charlemagne. I think that it's obvious and evident for researchers to follow those breadcrumbs, right?
It is. They really, if you will, had more of an empire than a kingdom. That kingdom covered a lot of ground. I'm tempted to go grab a map because their empire spread quite a ways north, east, and west.
Yeah, that's right. And now I'm looking at the clock. We're going to take a break.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they were. It was.
But
it was all the way into Bavaria.
That is correct. Now you mentioned caves earlier. Mm. There are mentions in the Rennes-le-Chateau research and documents about caves in those hills that are still yet to be discovered. Do you think that we'll find one of those caves with some pretty remarkable stuff in it someday?
I hope so. I myself plan to shift gears here. It may take me a year or two to marshal my resources, but I'm hoping to make some discoveries in that area. At the end of, in early June, I'll be down there filming with Web Icon. And we're going to go to quite a few locations that are important to the Rennes-le-Château story, and meet some interesting people as well. So very much looking forward to that. And what shocked me about the story is the Cathar language, which is still spoken in southern France. There are about 800,000 people that still speak it today, was spoken as far north as Château de la Rochefoucauld. And I didn't know that until I went there. And that's, it's quite a ways north, but it's not far away from Angoulême, which was one of the important Merovingian cities. So the whole, forgive me, I'm kind of wafting around a bit, but caves are incredibly important for initiatic experiences. They're a quick way to jar someone out of their everyday mundane and to help focus you in on what's happening in order to cause an inner change, which causes physical change. So.
Now, we're going to head to a break. I wanted to pull up this image here, and it'll set the tone for when we return. And this is from a cave. What are we looking at here?
This is from Royston Cave. And Royston Cave is just north of London on the Roman road, and intersects with the ancient Celtic Icknield Way. This is a very important place. And the cave is a dome. I suggest going to roystoncave.co.uk and click on their virtual reality link, and you can spend hours poring over the carvings. This carving has been identified as Eleanor of Aquitaine in prison, but there's a problem with this. She is wearing a crown. You can see the head, and she is seated in an alcove, not a prison. Her body, it's like an upside down teardrop that tightens to a small point at her ankles, and a fin spills out over the ledge. So this individual is actually named Melusine, and Eleanor of Aquitaine is related to the Rochefoucauld family, who claim ancestry from the fairy queen Melusine. So I hope that hope you got all that. She's
a mermaid.
I'll
say it. I'm not afraid to say it.
No, say it. And this is, there's quite a lot behind this that I look forward to sharing with you.
It's just an incredible image. And let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black, live from the United Kingdom. Gretchen Cornwall is with us. We'll be right back. Oh, once again, I am not quite right. I'm so excited about the show tonight. Let me do this, and then I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to do this and say, we'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. This is Jimmy Church, and I want to introduce you to Life Waves X39 Stem Cell Activation Patch, which has totally transformed my health, my sleep, brain, and my eyes. I no longer need reading glasses. X39 is a true breakthrough in regenerative science. Using light, X39's patented age reversal technology is clinically proven to signal the activation of younger stem cells, accelerating the body's natural healing process. X39 promotes restoration and rejuvenation, bringing the life-changing benefits that I've experienced. By naturally elevating a master signaling peptide in the body, X39 boosts vitality, health and wellness, and resets 4,000 genes to a younger, healthier state. It's one patch, once a day, and you can turn back time with X39. Just go to healingworksnow.com. That's works with an X. healingworksnow.com.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests, shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's gonna be a night to remember. You don't wanna forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I wanna see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. That's right, X39. That's what I'm wearing it right now, X39. Right here. It's how I got my vision back. I can't explain it. It works. All right. Our guest tonight, Gretchen Cornwell, live from the UK. And tonight, we're talking about Mary, the bloodline of Mary Magdalene, and possible ties to the Knights Templar. And right before the break, I popped up an image of Royston Cave, which is in the United Kingdom. And I want to get back to this image really quick. Who carved this?
The Knights Templar. That's the short of it. This is just one connection between the Templars and Mary Magdalene, who is their ancestor.
Let's start. And how did you start to connect those dots?
Okay, I'll try to encapsulate this. The Knights Templar are drawn from noble families, aristocratic families. Many kings rode with them in their lay brother system. Richard the Lionheart did, whose mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, is related to the Rochefoucauld family. And the kings of Jerusalem were of the same lineage. So what you have with the mermaid is you have a person. This is an allegory of someone who is capable of navigating the inner planes. And the image of the mermaid is one of seniority. And conversely, the merman or Neptune, the sea beast or the water beast that fathers Merove, the beginning of the Merovingian line. So you've got the two. Melusine first appears in northern France, going back to maybe the 500s, and the Lusignan branch of the family were the first to write down the legends of Melusine. But it's the Rochefoucauld family is actually senior in line. The Lusignans have died out. So the Rochefoucauld family is incredibly important. And Melusine is the Lady of Avalon, the Lady of the Lake. So go right there. She gives Excalibur to Arthur. All of these legends. She is the mother of Lancelot in some legends, or she steals him, and the Lady of the Lake raises him. But Melusine is an interesting character. She finds a wounded warrior who is the head of the House of Lusignan, and he is wounded. So she nurses him back to health, but in his delirium he stumbles into a magical kingdom, and there is a fountain with this impossibly beautiful woman and her two sisters. But it's Melusine who has all the gifts. So the two sisters are interesting because the story is a repeat from her mother and grandmother. So you've got an ancestry there. There's always the main female with two sisters. So you're talking about an ancestry here. So Melusine gets him back on his feet, the Count of Lusignan, and he says, "Marry me." And she said, under one condition: you cannot come into my chambers on Saturday. And he says, well, okay, that's a bit eccentric, but yes, okay, fine, let's get married. So they have 10 sons who go on to do incredible things, but she performs miracles, strange miracles, like building a castle in a day, building a church in a day. Now, another way to look at that is maybe she had access to cutting edge technology and engineering and building, and enough money to hire some really fabulous architects and stonemasons. So there are different ways to interpret these legends in the practical world. Mm-hmm. So they're very happy. They live many years. The kingdom is flourishing, and everyone, the crowned heads from Europe are all coming to see who this woman is. And they've all fallen in love with her. She's a big hit. His brother, however, shows up one day after many years of marriage and 10 sons, and starts whispering in his ear and says, are you so sure that your sons are your sons? Are you sure she doesn't have a lover in there every Saturday? So, he gets worried and peeks through a hole in the door and sees his wife in her bath, but she's got a tail instead of legs. Melusine immediately understands that she's been rumbled, gets incredibly upset, turns into a dragon, and flies away, never to be seen again. And of course, he's distraught. There was no lover, and the kingdom falls apart. But the children and the line continues down the centuries. There's a really important factor here. Why Saturday? Why Saturday? And why is it so important? Sunday is the Christian holy day, because that's the day that he rose, according to biblical texts. However, Saturday is the Sabbath, the Jewish Sabbath. Now, why is that important in a Christian world? Well, if she's been found to have fairly recent 500 years, she's a Jewess, that's dire. that could be life-threatening. So here's a very rich, powerful, count who's married to a woman who's descended from a family in exile, Mary Magdalene. This woman, Melusine, is descended from. She immediately has got to go into hiding, doesn't she? She has to leave. She's Jewish, and medieval history is full of accounts of persecution. And if you were a rich lord and you were shy on cash, what you do is you go to your Jewish neighbor, steal from them, and then kick them out of your kingdom or your little fiefdom. That happened over and over and over again. So, that's the clue right there.
Is the dragon part and the tail, is that just metaphor for her having to have left or maybe even kicked out?
Well, that's getting into an interesting discussion here that probably could take up another program.
Right.
But are you aware of the Order of the Dragon that Vlad Dracula's grandfather created?
I am, actually.
Okay. So you've got that, and also Uther Pendragon. The name Pendragon means head dragon. The Welsh flag is the red dragon on a white field, and according to Welsh legends, the white dragon and the red dragon fought a duel for supremacy of Wales, and the red dragon won. So who are the dragons? And this is part of the lineage mystery. So you're talking about some very talented individuals here, and very strong individuals who could potentially be a threat to the status quo.
Yeah, no, and dragon, again, symbolic, right? It's symbolic to the actual story.
For this discussion, I would like to stay symbolic. There are some pretty powerful people out there. You've got Merlin, legend, look at the medieval saints. I've done a lot of studying about them. Some of these medieval saints were performing miracles on par with what Jesus did. They're raising people from the dead. They're walking on water. They're dueling with beasties in big lakes. But when you want to bring in shape-shifting reptilian aliens, I'm on. That's another topic.
Okay, fair enough.
It's I have some pretty strong feelings and thoughts on that front. One thing, we're not alone in the universe. You can't discount the UFO phenomenon. We all know what it is. There are different beings that have been visiting this planet since before there were human beings. Now, this does not mean that the spirituality that came to us through this great being that we call Jesus or Yeshua, that does not degrade his importance. And this is what I wish that other Christians would come to, is if the great divine is big enough to hold all of this together, we shouldn't be threatened by visitors from other world, if not our distant ancestors or not so distant. So, we really mustn't be threatened. The reptilian alien situation is a double-sided coin. There's a positive side and there's a negative side. There are good dragons, there are bad dragons. I can't go down the path that the world is run by these shape-shifting reptilian aliens who are impersonating human beings. I denounce that completely, and there's a lot of reasons why, a lot of them practical too. If you really want to get down to it, follow the money, just follow the money, and you'll find your economic answers and problems, what is causing problems. So I do think different ETs have been here. There's the tall blondes, the tall dark hairs, the tall redheads, perhaps the sources of the Tuatha De Danann. So anyway, that's my
I had
encapsulation of how that reptilian brain, don't we?
Yeah,
This actually looks like a reptile through the that growth process. So we all have that fight flight. We all go through that shift. It's an endlessly fascinating topic.
It is. I had Paul Wallace on the show earlier this week, and I asked Paul, we were talking about this subject, and I said, the flying saucer lands on the White House lawn, right? And stairs come down. ET starts stepping down. I asked him, I said, would you be surprised if it was Jesus that stepped off? And he goes, no, not really.
I wouldn't be surprised either.
Not really.
I wouldn't be surprised. Really. And I've often thought, that's probably how it's going to happen. and the Bible is full of these stories. And that doesn't mean that the ET isn't spiritual. In fact, incredibly advanced. We're talking Marvel Comics here. And the ancient, the gods that are in our mythologies around the world portray very human tendencies of jealousies. They have extraordinary powers where the population base, gets trounced on by these super beings. But amongst super beings, there are super spiritual cultures that can what's the term I'm trying to find? Embody.
Right.
Embody the great divine.
Well, there's another part to this too, and then we're going to move on. But I subscribe to another idea, not completely, but let's look at it like this. If ET, any of them, and there's an infinite amount of civilizations out there, it's a crazy amount of life in the universe, but if they are aware of Earth, they've been studying us for a long time. They know our languages, they know our habits, they know what we look like, and they also know what's not going to freak us out. So if they were, this is just a hypothesis, if they were to arrive here, they wouldn't want to freak us out in their image. Elvis would step off of that flying saucer, right? Because we wouldn't freak out on Elvis.
I understand what you're saying, and
we wouldn't freak out on Jesus, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was approached that way. They wouldn't want to freak us out. That's just one idea. It could be something else, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah, I'm open to that concept. I think it's important to consider options, and in all of the civilizations that are mathematically possible out there, and science, in the way it's been discussed in the last 20 years, has gone from saying there's absolutely no life out there, we're the only ones, and they're slowly saying, yes, there is life out there. There can't not be.
That's right.
And within recent, was it the Navy or the Air Force that released the footage, the fighter pilot footage of them encountering a
The
couple
tic tac. Yeah, the
tic tac. So
Right.
so when the Air Force decides to go and do something like that, or the Navy, something is changing. So we've had this progression over the years, and we can't not say that a highly technological society wouldn't also be spiritually advanced and in line with the great all that is.
Yeah, it would have to be that way. And I'm saying this pretty matter of factly that if we even contemplate what we would be, not only physically but spiritually in 10,000 years,
Oh
we're not going to look like this. We're not.
no, I agree. I agree with you. We're going to be very different. Wish we were going to be around to see what that looked
I
like.
know, right? I would love that. Okay, let's pull up. This next image is the Pillar of Da Vinci. What's going on here?
This now Chateau de la Rochefoucauld, the name Rochefoucauld is at the top right-hand corner of Zena Halpern's map. I apologize, I didn't send that to you. I know you've had Scott Walter on quite a lot, and he is doing a lot of work on that topic. One of the ways I've been tackling this is to go to the locations that are mentioned in the Cremona documents. So this is Chateau de la Rochefoucauld. They are a direct descendant of Melusine. She is their family crest. They have lived in this castle, held this position for 900 years. Think on that as you consider the revolutions that have gone on politically in France. So this is the Da Vinci stairwell. We don't know if Da Vinci built it himself, but this is one of his designs. There are only maybe 16 of these varying natures in castles in France today. But it is actually, I was quite dizzy, climbing this thing. It's very beautiful. It filled me with awe, but I felt very lightheaded as well, and I actually had to stop several times. So there's a lot of energy happening on this stairwell in this castle. It's very beautiful, very, very beautiful. This is fascinating. This is about 40 miles south of Berlin. Germany holds a special relationship with not only Mary Magdalene, but Bernard de Clairvaux, who was a mastermind behind the Templar Knight Order. He actually he took a failing order, the Cistercian order, and turned it into an international juggernaut, really. And he gave the rule book from the Cistercians to the Hugh de Payens, to the Templars. He was a great supporter behind the scenes of the Templars, and Templars are Cistercians with swords. So long story short, Bernard de Clairvaux gives his crozier to Speyer Cathedral in Germany, which is dedicated to Mary Magdalene. So this is on the left-hand side, an image of Mary Magdalene holding 3 children, 2 at her feet, 1 in her arms, various ages. Her alabaster jar is at her feet, and the shell of Venus is behind her head. Next to her in the middle there is fascinating. You have a woman in medieval dress. Now, these carvings were probably done around, I would say, 1730 into 1750 and through there. And this is the height of the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons. So, you've got this woman with her left knee exposed, holding the sword of truth, and you have a priest with his right knee exposed. And this is an allegory of Templarism embracing the bloodline in Mary Magdalene and women and priestesses. as being welcomed into Templarism, which would have been an original branch, if you will, of the Templars, in secret, of course. Not all Templars were aware of this. You would have had to have been pretty high up to know these things. There were female Templars as well in Spain. There were actually Templar female abbeys in southern Spain.
Now, we have Mary with 3 kids here. Yep. That's Sarah and the 2 sons. Do we have names for the 2 sons?
No, unfortunately, no. We don't.
What's in the alabaster jar?
Those are the very expensive oils that were used. Well, we're coming up on a coronation here on the 6th. King Charles the Third will be anointed with oils on his head, in the tradition of Jesus, of Yeshua, being anointed as the Christed one, as this is a hallmark of kingship. And of course, the men don't like this. She's performing this ceremony, and the male disciples actually don't like it, which is interesting. One, why are they jealous of him being anointed as the king? So that's weird. Why are they? They're picking on Mary Magdalene, saying she shouldn't be doing that. It's too expensive. Why are you letting this woman do that? So here she is saying, "This is the king." And they're angry. So that is interesting. So and I am not at all, how do I say it? This is my quick disclaimer here. There are so many wonderful Catholics in the world who hold the golden thread of spirituality that runs through Catholicism in that golden part that is ethical, humane, etc., etc. It's those that hide under the umbrella and abuse abuse the system that need to be shifted out. So you cannot, there are 2 billion Christians in the world. Okay, that's not going to change. It's not going to go away. 2 billion, that's a lot. And underneath that, there are 35,000 different Christian sects in the world. I can't even tell you what all those different sects think, believe, practice, and feel. So, we have to accept that Christianity is here to stay, and we need to be talking to our fellow human beings with respect. So that's my quick disclaimer there. And that's not to say that I don't think the Pope should be married with children. I do. And that the issues with abuse, the Magdalene laundries, the pedophile priests, needs to be addressed. And I saw an incredible documentary. Long story short, the Catholic Church is an umbrella for multiple orders underneath it, spread around the world. And the Pope is actually not able to push a button on his desk and disperse change. That's not possible. You need people in the community to protect the organization at the community level and keep everybody accountable. Accountability is so necessary in our finances, in government. Without accountability, that's when everything goes wrong. And we're seeing that play out in so many different ways since the financial crash of 2008. So anyway, that's my disclaimer. So I apologize. What were we talking about?
I was talking about Mary with 3 kids.
Yeah, we don't have names for the 2 sons, unfortunately.
And it looks to me in that, and other images too. It's not just this one. It looks like a mother with three children, and the way that the children are depicted adoring their mother. That's what you see.
Very human.
But there are those that'll say, that's Jesus, that's Jesus and John the Baptist, that's Jesus and a couple of his buddies. That's I never really see it that way, and it's that nobody really wants to. If you are a religious scholar, or a part of the church, that you're not going to say that. You're not going to say that that's Mary with kids, and I just don't understand that when clearly that's what's being depicted.
Yeah, this is where the art schools that protected this secret, as well as you have to be able to explain famous works of art in two ways. There's the secret way of hiding it in plain sight, and then there's the accepted narrative. And I go into a lot of that in my first book, examining different paintings and statues. So it's once you understand how to look at that, you start seeing it everywhere. And yes, John the Baptist was real. He did. They were cousins. He was the older cousin. Should have been king. Wasn't. So Jesus had to step in, and he did. But that particular statue from Germany, where is John the Baptist's mother in that image?
I've seen that, and those paintings have been changed also over the years too, as well.
Yeah, and so have the Black Madonnas in cathedrals.
Mm-hmm.
They've actually painted them white. Unfortunately, was it Chartres Cathedral? They to end the discussion on the Black Madonna, painted her white. So, okay,
what's going on here?
Okay, well, this is a rather aged and dour-looking King Edward III. And he is a follow-on from the fall of the Knights Templar. The date 1348 comes to mind. So, this is he's within a generation of the Templars. Now, he's an interesting character. At the age of 18, with a small group of men, and I like to think there might have been a Templar or two in that small group, stormed the castle of Nottingham Castle of Sherwood Forest fame through a series of tunnels underneath the castle to arrest his mother and her lover. His mother may have been pregnant, but if that was the case, then Edward III's life was in danger, and he knew it. So he arrested his mother, executed her lover, and took his throne back. She was, Queen Regent, and she really didn't want to give power to her son, who at age 18 was in his majority. So he feared for his life. Now, his father, Edward II, had been murdered and lost a decisive battle, Bannockburn, in Scotland, which is rumored to gosh, forgive me, I'm losing it a bit. He lost 24,000 Englishmen fighting the Scots. And that was rumored on the field that there were white knights on horseback who helped Robert the Bruce win that battle, Templars. So his father, the Hammer of the Scots, Edward I, so this is who Edward III is, and comes from a very illustrious background. Now, Edward I was a Templar supporter. And this is where England gets really interesting. You cannot take the Templar out of England. And there were Templars that were arrested. Some of them died in captivity, but some of them got away. Edward III wanted to embrace the legends, all of them, about King Arthur, and created the Order of the Garter. And the Garter, he was at a feast. He was holding a great feast, and a lady of the court, her garter fell off her thigh, which in those days, if you even showed your ankle, you were considered a prostitute. The rules were so tight. So he actually picks it up, puts it on his own thigh, and says, shame on him who think evil of it. Now, of course, the speculation on what all of that means is quite something. The garter is round, has a buckle on it, and it is the most prestigious royal chivalrous order still in existence today. And it is it's if you're appointed as an Order of the Garter, it's for life. So he created the Order of the Garter, started to reshape Windsor Castle with a large round table for his knights of the Round Table. So he was really going for it, but then he abandoned the plans and got into a war with his cousins in France. Now, long story short, Edward III forced out the Hospitallers who had control of the church in the town of Royston. Royston Cave is right underneath the crossroads of the Roman road out of London and the Celtic Icknield Way that runs across it. It is, the Templars were all about having a presence at a crossroads so that they would know for security who's coming in, who's going out, and of course, do they need financial services? So they dug out Royston Cave. Over years, they would have, the carvings, came into being. And there was a platform above the carvings. And so they were able to disguise their activities underneath where the carvings were.
Now,
And
this next image, well, stay right there, because this is in the entrance of Royston Cave.
Yeah. With the current entryway, which dates to the 1700s, this is the main shocking thing that you see. It might not have been the first thing during the time of the Templars, because during the time of the Templars, Royston Cave is a large dome. You would have come down a ladder to the first level and then down another ladder into this level. But I believe that this is a very important shocker. It's meant to confuse prying eyes, because it's also deeply heretical. You have the naked woman who is called a Sheila Nagig, which is pre-Christian mother goddess figure, and you've got the Uffington horse, which is a chalk figure. On the Icknield Way down to Bristol, where they also had a control of the port. The Templars controlled the port in Bristol. So why are they integrating the Sheila Nagig and the Uffington horse here? Notice, so that's interesting. So notice the sword here is in the prayer position, but it's tilted. And next to it is what's been erroneously called a shield. It's not a shield. A shield like that small, didn't come into place many hundreds of years later as technology changed. During this time, you would have had a kite shield, which could have been a good 4 to 5 feet long, and meant to protect your whole body. So what that represents is a floor plan of the round church of Cambridge, which was built at around the same time that this would have been dug out. And it's on the same road that intersects. And it's a sacred road, and there are a few Templar properties on this road from north to south. It's actually runs northeast to southwest across Britain. So you've got this sword at an angle, which I believe represents this ancient Icknield Celtic way. And there are Templar properties on the Icknield Way. And Royston Cave, the floor plan is actually in the shape of an octagon. So you come in, you step down about 6 inches, 8 inches into an octagon, and that octagon is true by north-south. It's just off by a few degrees. So these are master builders here. The Templars built in round towers, they built in octagons, and the octagon church is up the way. Now, Edward III took the church of Royston Cave by force, if you will. The church was being held by the Hospitallers, which were given Templar properties. Now, the funny thing is, the Templars never held this church. But I do believe that Edward III knew something was going on at Royston, because he took 2 other churches on this line, on this road. 8 miles. Let me finish my thought first on the configuration here of the you're not going to drop down a hole in a street as a Templar. Everybody's going to know what you're doing. Royston was a market town. They built a permanent structure above the cave so that they could secretly go in and out when they wanted to. And the Augustinians that held the church, and this cave is right on their front door, to add insult to injury to the Augustinians. And there is on record, arguments between the Augustinians and the Templars. The Templars complained to the king they were being taxed by the Augustinians. They should have been able to be there tax-free. So they had a physical presence in Royston, and they owned several properties in Royston, and it cheesed off the Augustinians. So 8 miles south, however, on the same line is the town of Baldock that they were given permission to build. So you've got a market trading town that was completely built by the Knights Templar. Baldock is a derivative of the name Baghdad. Well, now that is just no end of cool there. Right. So unfortunately, when the Templars were disbanded, the Hospitallers got hold of the town of Baldock, including its church that was dedicated to Mary Magdalene, and Edward III took it from them, and he became the patron of the Church of St. Mary Magdalene and the Church of St. John's in Royston, and also the Church of St. Michael's in Ryston. So you've got 3 churches on this ancient line that he took and became the patron of. So Edward III was looking for Templar secrets. Those churches remained in the crown up until the early 1800s, when they were absorbed by the local diocese.
There's so much symbolism in this, and to have the four symbols right in a row, clearly tied together, it's just extraordinary.
There's more. I haven't sent you everything, or we would be here for probably a couple of days. But there is more.
Well, then there's this. this blew my mind. Let's just go right here. Let's go right here.
Yes,
Right here for a second. And
indeed.
let's go right here. Now, I'll let you say it out loud, but I'm just going to zoom in. Who is that?
Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, schmoozing with the Rocheficaulds. And of course, she spoke fluent French. She was highly educated. She was very refined, very noble woman, hanging out with the Rocheficaulds in France. And this photograph is in the castle itself. The family has been rubbing shoulders with America for a few centuries. They were best friends. One of the dukes was best friends, if you will, with Benjamin Franklin. And there is a very expensive plaque also in their drawing room that venerates Benjamin Franklin and their association with him.
The young Jackie here, this is before she's obviously married to future President John Kennedy. And the fact that she's here with this family and then later marries John Kennedy, which had, the Kennedy family nicknamed Camelot, is also pretty bizarre to me. This is an amazing photograph.
Wow. Thank you for phrasing it in those terms. Yes.
Because that's exactly what's happening.
It is. This is an important family. They have always been close to the throne. To be honest, they could have taken the throne if they had wanted to. They are that high up the ladder. One of the French kings in the late 1600s, early 1700s, is such a friend to the Duke de la Rochefoucauld that he asked him to move to Paris. So the Duke built a palace near Paris. They're insanely wealthy, or had been, but they're still movers and shakers. The area where this chateau sits has recently adopted the family name as its county name within the last few years. So, this is they've been under the radar until Zena's map came out. Nobody in the English speaking world really knew who the Rocheficaulds were unless they were well versed in French history and early American history.
Just an incredible photograph. Man, she was stunning. Man, she was stunning.
She is a beautiful, graceful
man.
A consort fit for a king, truly.
Okay. This. Okay, let's just go there. I'm going there right now.
Okay.
I had this thought the other day about Starbucks. And the thought was this: Starbucks is like, to my recent, not memory, is a company that is now as globally recognized as a logo as anything else. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, right? I just, pick something, Starbucks. And they've done it all without advertising. That's how this. Okay, so what are we looking at here? The first thing I think of is Starbucks.
Well, you're not too far off. It is another incarnation of Mary Magdalene. This is the emblem for the city of Magdeburg in Germany. And Magdeburg is only 10 miles away from where the encyclopedia at the Merovingian Abbey, Hortus Delicarium, was written. You have Mary Magdalene, or the Maiden, holding the palm of victory and the Sword of Truth, and she's standing integrated with a tower, Mary Magdalene, or Mary the Tower. And this is the city of Magdeburg. Again, a close tie to Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to me. In that I don't think after this show, and somebody sees this and understands Mary Magdalene, the city, all of that, the tower, the symbology, but then you're never going to get Starbucks out of your mind again.
No,
and it's not. I just don't feel that it's a coincidence.
I know Starbucks started in Seattle. I'm from the greater Seattle area. And I have always loved that logo. There are some people who say it's evil. Well, I don't think so. This is a very important individual. Women's rights are being eroded around the world. We're actually sliding into a dark time. I feel so badly for the women in Afghanistan. It's just dreadful what's happening in Israel. Women are no longer allowed to read the holy books. They're no longer allowed to preach. Things have gotten very tight. I have some very close friends women who go to church every Sunday and have embraced her as their mother figure, as the new Eve. They have no problems with this whatsoever, in balancing her out with their relationship with Yeshua, Jesus, and Christianity. So there really isn't an argument here. And just broader discussions.
Yes. It's just a fascinating image there. And okay, here we go. Now we're going to do this one more time. What are we looking at?
Yeah, I took a photograph and I put this into black and white so you could see it better. If you go to roystoncave.co.uk, you can see all the carvings in the cave. I wasn't given permission to use the carvings in my book, which was rather crushing to me. But they're protecting their. I cannot fault the leadership of Royston Cave for protecting, as they see fit, their asset, if you will. A lot of monuments want to stay neutral. So here I come along and I make their life difficult. But you'll see a complete description of the pertinent carvings in my book. But even in the book, I direct you to the virtual reality that is available online. This has always been described as Eleanor of Aquitaine, who is imprisoned. Now, Eleanor of Aquitaine went on crusade and was asked by Bernard de Clairvaux, mastermind of the Templar Knights, to go and support the Templars, and she did. She gave them a lot of land in southern France, a lot of land, and her son followed suit. So here you have a woman with a crown. You can see her head, her shoulders, her body tightens down at the ankles, and a tail, a fin, flows out from the alcove she's sitting in. So this is not just Melusine, it's also Eleanor of Aquitaine, whose grandmother is a Rochefoucauld. And again, Melusine is the family shield for the Rochefoucauld family. So again, the Rochefocaulds are close to the crowns of, important crowns of Europe, as well as being related to them. They're their descendants. Eleanor is an amazing woman. She, along with Bernard de Clairvaux, believe it or not, lifted women to a higher level. Bernard de Clairvaux started the Mariology movement, which was a veneration of Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, and lifted women up. At this time, chivalry began to be more respectful towards women, and Eleanor of Aquitaine was the queen of the troubadours, and of course was involved with the Cathars of as well. So she is next to, this carving is next to another image of what looks basically like an better formed out, a stick figure on one side of her. And this figure, this man, is holding a skull in one hand and a candle in the other. So that kind of gives you some information to what's going to be experienced when you go into the cave. When the cave was discovered, a skull was found, a real skull was found in the cave. And of course, the skull and crossbones is a flag of the Templars, the Jolly Roger, which became,
whose skull was it?
Well, that's a good question. They don't know. It's speculated that it might have been Lady Roysia's. Royston is a derivative of her name, and her mother was also named Roysia, R-O-I, meaning Roy, meaning king, Zia, S-I-A, feminine version of kingship. So Lady Roysia, mother, daughter, basically, their name was, or queen, she was married to Geoffrey de Mandeville, who rode with the Templars. And that's a whole other story, but she is depicted with her husband in the cave, carved into the floor. And you'll see it's in miniature. It's only about this long, this carving in the floor. And so you'll see a lot of burials in churches, full size, of nobility who paid to be close to the high altar and have brass or other carvings in the floor, letting you know where they were buried in the church. So here it is in miniature, and I've never seen anything like that anywhere else. So this is a shrine to Geoffrey de Mandeville, supporter of the Templars, and also to his wife. So this is an interesting endeavor of man and wife and the Knights Templar. Wild. And of course the Templars conducted their financial trading from there, and whatever else they were trading at this location in Royston.
Well, let's get the rest of before we run out of time. What are we looking at here?
I took this photograph in Chateau de la Rochefoucauld. It's actually white marble, but the photo didn't take very well. It is a marble platform, and it is the family shield for the Rochefoucauld family. And you've got the two wild men on either side. That probably represent conquered kings. You'll see that a lot in different families. They all have their conquered foe looking very wild. Might also be a holdover of the Green Man thought structure from the Middle Ages. The Sheila na gig was often put into churches. Wild green men, and above in the ducal crown is Melusine with two tails holding up the plinth, and on top of that was a bust of one of the Dukes de Rochefoucauld. So
absolutely mind-blowingly fascinating. All right, let's get all of this in. Here we go. There's another tale.
That image I took is the exterior of the castle, and she is repeated a few times around the upper castellations, along with the shell, the Venus shell, or the Compostela. Rochefoucauld is on the trail of the pilgrimage of Compostela to Spain, to the cathedral there, where if you walk the pilgrimage trail, then you get your shell when you arrive there. But it's also a symbol of Venus.
We're running into overtime. I just have 2 minutes left here before we get cut off.
There he is, Royston Cave. This is the man holding the candle, the skull. He
yeah.
has faded badly over time, but I'm basing that information off of what Royston Cave authorities say themselves that he looked like, in times gone past. This is a delicate structure, and it is crumbling. It's made out of chalk.
Let's do this really quick.
That picture is in a pew at the Church of St. Mary Magdalene at Baldock, built by the Knights Templar. And there is the mermaid, their ancestress, and a very large nasty beastie who wants to eat her.
Yeah, it's just a crazy shot.
Yeah.
Now, is this another floor plan?
Yes, yeah, that's a second one. That is thought to be Saint George. He could also be this is where it gets touchy. I don't have time to explain his armor and what he's wearing. In this case, Saint George is as good a conversation as any.
He's got a cross on his chest.
Yeah, you'll see hearts everywhere in this cave, and the crosses are absolutely dizzying. You'd go crazy trying to count them.
Right.
That is the church inside the castle complex of Rochefoucauld. That is one of the main windows. That is Mary Magdalene holding the Grail. And if you notice, there's quite a lot of fabric in covering her abdomen or tummy in an exaggerated fashion. She has the shell of Compostela or Venus behind her.
There's the castle.
There's the castle, a 900-year-old castle that's been built in various stages over 900 years.
Absolutely incredible. This last image, I got a bad image, everybody. It's not pixelated.
I apologize. It's my fault. There's Melusine looking at herself in the mirror of Plato, if you will. Know thyself, as Cassiopeia looking at herself in the mirror. Not, aren't I gorgeous? I'm sure she is, but it's know thyself.
And also very Starbucksy. I might add.
Yeah, and this is the Order of the Garter's symbol, the Cross of St. George, the symbol for England, the Kingdom of England. And this is well placed for the church at Royston, which suffered a terrible fire set by teenagers. This might actually be one of the few actual photographs of that window remaining. There's the Order of the Garter window again at Royston.
And man, we are out of time. I've got one last image here, and I apologize, everybody, but we can make out what are we looking at?
I wasn't allowed to use a photograph of this, but this is a 18th century drawing of Lady Roisia and Geoffrey de Mandeville. In the floor, it might be about, I don't know, a good foot long, maybe a few feet long, in miniature. Basically, this is, I think, where she's asking the Templars to pray for them both. This happened often. You would pay a religious order to pray for you as long as the money held out that you endowed them with. and that where so this is a memorial to those two individuals.
Okay, one last shot. There we go.
And that, of course, is Mary Magdalene in her visage as Lady Liberty. And she is a liberating figure if you understand her secrets. And she is holding up a torch, but in reality, it is the spear of destiny.
Thank you. So what an amazing show. Now, where can everybody get your books? I know that I've got a few links up for you.
Thank you. I am on Amazon. You can buy signed copies, personalized copies from myself at GretchenCornwell.com. And forgive me. Yeah, GretchenCornwell.com, Amazon. And also, if I could direct you to the other link, Templars
TV.
Yeah. I am a contributor to the series, episodes 3, 4, and 5. 5 is being filmed at the end of May. A contributor to the series. We'll be filming in southern France. So, and that's on episodes 1, 2, 3, 4 are on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Gretchen, thank you so much. And all of Gretchen's links are below over on our website, of course, and I've posted them up throughout social media. Thank you for staying up so late with us, and enjoy the rest of your day over there in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, Gretchen. Perfect.
Thank you, Jimmy. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Long and prosper.
I do know what that is. We'll talk to you. Thank you so much, Gretchen.
Thank you.
What a perfect show tonight. I had so much fun, and we don't dive into this as much as we should. And it is just one of those subjects that I've been covering for many, many years here on Fade to Black. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJ Sierra for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be downloaded, rebroadcast, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll see everybody tomorrow night. Until then, be safe. Go Backley Tappy.